Rain helps you sleep, but what if it also helps you hear what you're not supposed to? Welcome to Story for Sleep, a slow descent into something quiet, unsettling, and strangely comforting as the rain falls. Close your eyes, let your breath slow and listen, because some stories don't scream, they whisper. Let's begin. It started with small things. My shoes weren't where I left them. The bathroom light was on when I woke up. My front door was unlocked again. I live alone, no pets, no guests. At first, I thought I was just forgetful, tired, overworked, but deep down, I knew something wasn't right, especially after that night in March. The night I saw myself outside the window. I had just moved into a new apartment. Complex, quiet, modern, surrounded by pine trees. I worked late hours, often slept past midnight, but one morning, my downstairs neighbor, Mrs. Keena, knocked on my door. She was pale, nervous. "I saw you outside last night," she said, around 2:30 a.m. "You were just standing there, staring at your own window." I blinked. I was asleep. She frowned. "I know what I saw." I laughed. It offs, but her words stuck in my mind that night. I set up my phone to record just in case. I placed it facing my bed, went to sleep at 11:42 p.m. At exactly 2:31 a.m., I woke up on the couch, fully dressed, shoes on, front door wide open, cold wind coming in, but the door had been locked. I was sure of it, and my phone still in the bedroom recording. I watched the video. At 2:28 a.m., I sat up in bed, eyes closed. I stood, walked to the door, and left. I didn't say anything, didn't even blink, just walked, like something was guiding me. I checked the hallway camera in the building. I wanted to know where I had gone. I saw myself leave my apartment. Then the screen glitched for exactly 9 seconds. When the feed resumed, I wasn't in the frame, not entering. The stairs not outside, just gone. I decided to stay awake. The next night, phone charged, lights on, coffee ready. I kept the camera rolling. 2 a.m., nothing to 17 a.m. Still quiet, but then around 2:24 a.m., I heard footsteps outside the door, slow, careful. I got up and opened it. No one was there until I looked down the hallway and saw me. I was standing at the end of the hallway, same hoodie, same face. But my expression was blank, eyes wide. I took a step forward, the other me did too, in sync. Another step, another match. I turned and ran back inside, slammed the door, locked it, breathing hard, silence. Then from the hallway I heard it, "Don't run from yourself." I checked the footage. It didn't show anyone else, just me alone, pacing, muttering something. I couldn't hear. I had enough. I installed motion sensors, alarms, everything. Even started writing down where I left things before bed. One night I left a note on the door, "If I leave again, follow me," and I did that night. I felt the pull again around 2:30 a.m. I didn't try to fight it. I let myself sleepwalk, but I also followed. I stayed awake, phone in hand, watched in shock as my body stood up from the bed and walked out. I trailed behind, barefoot and shaking. Down the hallway, down the stairs, out into the woods behind the apartment. I stayed hidden, my heart pounding. I walked straight to an old tool shed. I never knew it was there. He entered. I waited 2 minutes, then followed inside. It was pitch black, silent. I turned on my flashlight and saw dozens of drawings, pictures of me asleep in bed, on the couch, in the shower, in the mirror, every angle, every day. And under the drawings, a message scrawled in red, "I am what you leave behind when you dream." The other me stood in the corner, not moving back. Turned, I whispered, "Who are you?" He turned slowly, same face, but hollow eyes, and a smile that didn't match. In the you that never wakes up. I ran. Didn't look back, hid in a motel that night, and the next, and the next. Now I don't sleep. I can't, because I've learned something horrifying. If you sleepwalk too many times, you stop being the one who wakes up and the version of you who stays behind haze, not dreaming anymore. It started on a Sunday morning. I woke up feeling heavy, like I hadn't rested at all. My hands were stiff, my fingers clenched. When I looked down, I saw dirt in my palms, dark wet soil packed under my nails, some leaves, a small stone. I jumped out of bed, heart pounding. I hadn't gone anywhere. I went to bed at 10 p.m., like always, windows locked, door locked, no memory of a dream, just this soil, this strange, earthy smell, like I had been buried. I live in a small town just outside Spokane, Washington. Quiet, peaceful woods all around. I work from home, so I rarely leave unless it's for groceries. No one else lives with me. So the idea that I had somehow left the house, dug in the dirt, and come back without knowing terrified me. I told myself it was a fluke. Maybe I touched a dirty potted plant in my sleep. Maybe I had tracked it and I vacuumed everything, washed my sheets, cut my nails, went on with my day. Until it happened again the next morning, Monday. I woke up the same way, more dirt this time. Mud smeared on my pillowcase, and something new, a small piece of paper in my hand, torn, wet, faded, just a few words scribbled in pencil. Not done yet. I stared at it for 10 minutes, unable to breathe. I searched my entire room, my yard, the hallway. Nothing, no prints, no opened doors, no answers. I didn't sleep that night. Tuesday morning, I felt brave yet stupid. I sprinkled baby powder on the floor before bed. Just like in movies, I set up my phone to record, went to sleep clutching a flashlight at 2:43 a.m. I woke with a jolt, drenched in sweat, my arms sore. When I sat up, dirt fell out of my sleeves, thick, cold, wet. I grabbed the phone and watched the footage. At 2:11 a.m., I sat up in bed, eyes wide open, no blinking eye, stood, walked out of the room, and returned 22 minutes later, holding something in both hands. I knelt beside the bed, placed it under the mattress, and lay back down. At no point did I blink or speak. I slowly lifted the mattress. Underneath was a handful of dirt, but not just any. Dirt buried inside was a child's shoelace, pink, frayed, muddy, and a broken bead necklace. I didn't own either. I called the police. They came, checked everything, asked questions. I told them everything I could, showed the video. They said it might be sleepwalking. Suggested I see a doctor, but they took the shoelace and necklace with them. I thought it was over until Wednesday morning, when I woke up with bloody fingertips. Not cuts, just raw, like I'd been digging for hours. There was dirt all over my chest, my neck, my sheets, and this time a name scratched into my arm. Ella. I hadn't written it. The letters were uneven, deep. It burned. I searched for that name. Nothing local. Then I looked through public missing persons sites and found her, Ella Harper, 8 years old, disappeared from a nearby town 10 years ago. Last seen walking through the forest on her way home from school. Never found. I stared at her photo. Same pink shoelaces, same bead necklace. I went to the police again, told them about the dream, the dirt, the name. They brushed me off, called it trauma, stress, hallucinations, but I knew I was being led somewhere. That night I let it happen. I didn't fight sleep. I placed my phone in my hoodie pocket, flashlight clipped to my sleeve, and when I woke up, I was outside in the woods, standing in front of an unmarked patch of earth, near an old trail. A single shovel stuck in the ground, my hands were covered in dirt. I had been digging, and beneath my feet a hole. Shallow, fresh inside bones, small ones. A tattered backpack, a plastic pink shoe. I called 911. The discovery made the news. DNA confirmed it was Ella Harper. They called it a miracle. said a hunter Mustaf found it and reported it anonymously. I never came forward, but the dreams stopped, the dirt stopped, the voices stopped until last night I woke up with clean hands, but something cold in my grip. A silver locket, old, rusted, still warm. I opened it. Inside a photo of Ella on one side, and a boy I didn't recognize on the other with a note. Taped to the back, there's another. I haven't slept since, because whatever used me to find Ella isn't done yet. And I don't know how many more graves it wants me to find, or how long before the one in the dirt next. I've known Ethan since middle school, funny, loyal, a little strange but a good friend. We've shared dorms, jobs, and long drives. But nothing prepared me for what happened after he moved into that old house near the cemetery, a 2-story rental just outside town near the edge of Green Hollow Cemetery. Cheap, quiet, peaceful. He said it wasn't the first time it happened. He brushed it off. Weirdest thing, he texted, woke up standing by the back door. Guess I'm sleepwalking now. I laughed, joked about tying bells to his feet, but I didn't think much of it, until it happened again and again. Then one night he woke up in the cemetery, standing barefoot on a grave. He told me in person. His face was pale, his voice shook. I swear, Noah, I didn't even feel it 1 second. Him in bed, the next him standing on wet grass, and there's the stone in front of me. Martha Lorne, 1882-1911. Had never been there before, didn't even know the cemetery had a Martha. But there she was. I offered to stay over just for the weekend. We set up motion sensors, and my phone's camera in his room locked every door, went to sleep. 1:56 a.m. the sensor beeped. I watched half asleep as Ethan slowly stood up, eyes closed, calm. He walked to the locked door and opened it. No struggle, no key, it just opened. He stepped outside. I followed, cold air dew on the grass. I saw him walk across the backyard, through the broken fence, and into the cemetery. He moved slowly, like being pulled. I stayed behind, heart pounding. He stopped at Martha Lorne's grave again. Then something terrifying happened. He started digging, not fast, not frantic, just calmly pulling grass and soil with his hands. I ran to him, grabbed his arm. He didn't even blink. His eyes were still closed. I yelled, shook him, nothing, until I said her name, Martha. His eyes opened, and for a split second, they weren't his eyes. They were cloudy gray, like someone else was looking out. Then he collapsed. The next day he remembered nothing, but under his fingernails was dirt, and in his pocket, a silver ring engraved with ML. We checked old records at the local library. Martha Lorne was buried alive in 1911 by accident. She was thought dead from pneumonia, but when the grave was dug up years later, the coffin was scratched from the inside the town. Called it a tragic mistake. No one was ever held responsible. She never had family. No one claimed the grave. That night, Ethan begged me to stay again. We nailed the doors shut, slept in shifts. But at exactly 1:56 a.m., he stood again. This time he spoke. Not done. She's not alone. Then walk each night after the grave. Each night after that he visited different graves. Each one belonged to someone who died suddenly, drowned, fell, missing. Some weren't, even in the town records, but Ethan always knew where to find them, like something was guiding him. One night, I followed him deep into the woods, behind the cemetery. There, he stopped at a rotting stone, nearly swallowed by earth. No name, just an old rusted locket on top. He opened it. Inside was a photo of Martha, and beside her a man. Same cloudy eyes, same hollow smile. Ethan whispered, "He put them here." That's when I realized Ethan wasn't just sleepwalking. He was being led by Martha, or something she left behind, a spirit, a curse. Something was pulling him to reveal old secrets. Forgotten deaths, hidden graves. Hayes still in that house, still walking, still digging some nights. He screams names in his sleep. Names of people never recorded in any history book. Some mornings he wakes up with things in his hand, lockets, buttons, bones. Each time we search, and each time we find a grave, Ethan doesn't remember anything. But I do, and now am scared, because last night I dreamt I was standing in the cemetery. My hands were dirty, and Martha's voice whispered in my ear, one more, just one more. If your friend ever tells you they sleepwalk, and they live near a cemetery, stay the night. And if you see them walking barefoot at 2 a.m., don't follow too far, you may not come back the same. Am not a writer, never have been. I work in tech support, I fix computers, not stories. So when I started finding notes around my apartment, I assumed they were someone else's small scraps of paper, sticky notes, notebook pages. Even the back of receipts. All of them had the same message in capital letters, let me out. At first, I thought it was a prank. I live alone, but I've had friends over, maybe one of them thought it was funny. But after a week, it wasn't funny anymore, because I found a note taped to my forehead one morning. My name is Alex M. 28. I live in a quiet apartment on the 4th floor, no roommates, no sleepwalking history. But every morning for the last 2 weeks, I've found those words, leave me out, written somewhere on my bathroom mirror. Inside my fridge, etched faintly into the condensation on the window, always the same words. Always written in my own handwriting. I set up a camera to record myself sleeping. I wanted proof, or reassurance that someone wasn't sneaking in what I saw. Instead, made my blood run cold. At 2:33 a.m., I sat up in bed, eyes closed. I walked to my desk, picked up a pen, and began writing, not just once, over and over, pages and pages of the same line. Let me out, let me out, let me out. At one point, one laughed soft, hollow, like I was amused by my own suffering then. I whispered, almost free. The next morning, I checked my closet. Inside were dozens of pages. Crumpled, torn, stuffed behind shoes and old jackets. I don't remember writing them, but they were in my handwriting. And the words were growing more violent. Let me out. Why won't you listen? I'm drowning. I went to see a sleep specialist. They ran tests. Said I had no history of parasomnia or night terrors. They suggested stress. Suggested I might be experiencing dissociative behavior, maybe trauma. But I've never had trauma. No abuse, no head injuries, just dreams in the dreams. Am trapped in a small room. No doors, no windows. The walls are smooth, white, but if I press my ear against them, I hear scratching, not from the outside. From the inside, like someone's inside the wall. One night I dreamed I was digging through the drywall, and I found a face exactly like mine. It looked at me and whispered, let me out, then screamed. I woke up covered in dust. My fingernails were cracked and filled with plaster. I had torn a hole in my bedroom wall. Inside it, nothing but taped to the stud was a note. Thank you. Getting closer, I tried burning the notes. I tried moving out. I slept at a friend's house, but it followed me one morning. My friend shook me awake, told me I had been writing on the walls in my sleep, over and over, but this time it wasn't just let me out, it was let me be you. I went back to my apartment, back to the bedroom, back to the mirror where it had started, and this time the message changed too late. I don't know who's writing the notes now. I haven't slept in days, but my hands hurt, my fingers are stained with ink, and I still find new pages. The handwriting isn't mine anymore. It's sharper, angrier, not human. If you ever wake up and find something you didn't write, if you ever feel like you're not alone in your own body, don't ignore it, don't wait. because one night the version of you trapped inside might finally break through, and the version that gets out may not be you anymore. My name is Jordan. I used to believe sleepwalking was harmless funny, even you walk around, bump into a table, maybe pour milk in the closet. No big deal, but everything changed when I moved into my new apartment last fall because I didn't just sleepwalk. I watched myself. It started one weekend after work. I felt unusually tired and went to bed early. Nothing strange happened that night. But in the morning I found the bedroom lamp turned a Fevin, though I always leave it on. Then it happened again. My slippers had been moved. My closet door was wide open once I woke up with my front door unlocked. I didn't think much of it until I found the camera. It was a cheap webcam, sitting on my kitchen counter plugged into my laptop, still recording that. Alone was strange, but the file on it, even stranger. I clicked play. The footage showed me asleep in bed, and me standing next to the bed, still staring. For over an hour, I don't remember standing there, or getting out of bed, or turning on the camera. I was frozen, in the video, eyes open, but vacant. I didn't move, just stood there watching myself sleep, and then, at the very end, I smiled. I was terrified. I set up security cameras, that nitrile ones, with motion alerts. I locked every door, windows, and placed bells on my doorknob, went to bed with the lights on. But at 3:16 a.m., the bell rang. Soft, faint motion alert pinged on my phone. I checked the live feed, and there I was, standing beside the bed again, only this time I was staring at the camera, not blinking, as if I knew I was being watched. Then slowly I waved. I jumped out of bed and ran to the hallway. No one back to the bedroom, just me in bed, but the camera still showed him, the other mess standing, watching. I unplugged everything. Called my doctor the next day. They ran tests, asked questions, no history of mental illness, no seizures. They said maybe it was stress, maybe I was dreaming while moving, but I knew better. I wasn't dreaming because I had found something else, a note on my nightstand in my handwriting, but I didn't write it. You look peaceful. I wish I could sleep too. Each night got worse. He started moving, pacing, leaning over my face, opening drawers, touching my wrist. I tried sleeping in hotels on my friends' couch, but every morning I'd find pictures of myself asleep on my phone. Taken during the night. I was always alone in the bed, except for the reflection in the mirror behind me. Standing watching. One night, I stayed awake, sat in bed with a flashlight, and waited. 200 a.m. nothing. 237 a.m. heard soft footsteps. At 313 a.m. I saw myself enter the room. Same clothes, same face, but his eyes weren't right. They were empty, not tired, not angry, just blank. He stood at the end of the bed, then he whispered, "You sleep too much," and lunged. I blacked out, woke up hours later on the floor. Everything was overturned, lamps broken, curtains ripped, but nothing stolen, just chaos. Like a fight happened with myself, and on the mirror written in breath, "One of us has to go." Since that night, I don't sleep much, but when I do, I tie my hands, I set alarms, I surround myself with light still. Sometimes I wake up and haze back, standing in the doorway smiling. I don't know what he is, another version of me, a spirit wearing my skin, a shadow born from years of silent pain, but he wants to stay awake, he wants to live, he wants me gone. If you ever feel like you're being watched while sleeping, check your footage, and if you see yourself just standing and staring, don't look too long, because if he sees you see him, he might finally switch places. It started on a quiet Thursday morning. The phone showed something strange, a GPS notification. You walked 09 miles from home at 2:13 a.m., but there was no memory of it. No dreams, no bathroom break, nothing. The door was still locked from the inside. Shoes were in place, security camera off. At first it seemed like a glitch. But then it happened again the next night, same time, 2:13 a.m., another path shown on the map. This time it went into the woods nearby. The GPS trail was detailed. It showed a perfect line from the front door, through the yard, down the street, and deep into the forest, even circled the edge of a dried-up riverbed Thunback. All between 2:13 and 2:41 a.m. The next morning, there were mud stains on the floor, and a leaf on the bedsheet. A decision was made to test it that night. The phone was left on the nightstand, and a smartwatch with GPS was worn to bed. Also placed a baby monitor in the hallway. Motion activated. The house was silent when sleep came. At exactly 2:13 a.m. the monitor clicked on. Soft static, then footsteps, slow, careful bare feet, the creak of the front door, then silence. Morning came. The phone showed the same result. Walked 11 miles. The smartwatch confirmed it. Heart rate steady, movement logged the path. This time went past the woods into the cemetery. Later that day, the trail was followed in person. It matched perfectly, even the detours. At the far end of the cemetery, where the oldest graves were, something new had been placed, a single feather stuck in the ground upright next to it, written in the dirt, "Not sleepwalking that night." Windows were locked. Front and back doors were sealed with chairs, shoes were hidden, and a line of salt was poured across the threshold. Still the phone recorded movement. 2:13 a.m., not just a walk this time. The GPS showed a spiral shape, walking in circles around the house over and over, then a straight path into the forest again. And in the morning, the door was still sealed, but the salt line was disturbed. Stranger things began to appear. A bird skull on the pillow, muddy footprints on the ceiling, camera footage, corrupted black screen from 2:10 to 2:45 a.m., and messages began appearing on the phone. "Are you awake yet? I needed your legs. It's easier this way. Thanks. Called one came to stay the night." He laughed at the story until he saw the GPS he left around midnight to creeped out. That night the trail split two paths. One went to the river. One circled the neighbor's house, and the next morning, a dead fox was found on the porch. Its eyes were missing. The phone was turned off that night, battery pulled from the smartwatch, everything disconnected, but it still happened. At 2:13 a.m., the TV turned on by itself, white screen. A whisper came from the speaker's eye. "Don't need your tech, I need your body now." Every night, it comes, the footsteps, the movement. The GPS logs still show walking, even if the phone is in a drawer, even if locked in a safe, even if buried. The doctor says it's parasomnia, the priest says it's possession, but neither explains the fact that one morning there were two footprints, side by side, same size, same shape, but facing opposite directions. It's not just sleepwalking, it's not just a glitch, something is walking with you, and maybe one night you won't be the one who comes back. It happened on a cold Monday morning. Woke up standing barefoot on the front porch, no memory of getting there. The grass was wet with dew. The air was freezing, but the strangest part, the front door was locked from the inside. For a moment, everything felt still, then panic hit. There was no way in, no key, no open windows, no signs of a break-in or struggle, just standing outside the house. In pajamas, no shoes, no phone, and the door locked from within. It didn't make sense. The neighbors didn't answer their door at 6 a.m., waited 2 hours until the landlord arrived with a spare key. He unlocked the door, stepped aside and gave a strange look. "You sure you live here alone?" The living room was untouched. Kitchen clean, lights still off, everything normal. Except for one thing, a cup of tea warm sitting on the table, steam still rising, as if someone had just made it, but no one else lived there. Tried to brush it off. Maybe sleepwalking. Maybe got up, made tea, and stepped outside. Still didn't explain the locked door. The deadbolt couldn't be turned from the outside, and no key was in the lock. The next night placed a chair under the doorknob. Set up an old baby monitor facing the front door, tied a thread from wrist to bedpost. Of sleepwalking happened. It would snap, went to sleep with lights on, woke up on the porch again, this time thread still tied, chair, untouched, door still locked from inside, but something new. A note tucked under the welcome mat, "You shouldn't be here," handwritten, no envelope. Called a friend to stay over, told them everything. They laughed that night, both went to sleep around midnight. Next morning, friend woke up on the porch, confused, shivering. And yes, the door was locked from the inside again. Neither one remembered how they got there, but now both had seen it. More nights passed. Sleep came harder, sometimes woke to knocking, not from the front door, from inside the walls. Soft taps, rhythmic, like someone counting 3 knocks. Pause, 3 knocks again. Set up security cameras. One in the hallway, one outside. Footage showed nothing, just sleeping bodies, no movement, but every morning still ended up outside. Once with mud on the feet, once with a cut on the hand. No clue how it got there. One morning woke to find writing on the bathroom mirror, "Let me in," wiped it off. Went to call someone, phone was gone. Found it hours later inside the fridge. Decided to stay awake, lights on, TV playing, sitting in bed with a bat in hand. Fell asleep anyway, woke up slumped against the back wall of the house, head aching, hands dirty on the ground next to me. A key, old rusted, not mine. Took it inside, tried it on every lock, didn't fit, not on any door, not any drawer, not any window, until the closet, the hallway closet, hadn't opened in years. Painted shut, but the key clicked. Inside was a space no bigger than a coffin, empty except for scratch marks on the back wall. And a single photo, a blurry image of someone standing on the porch, looked exactly like me, same pajamas, same expression. But holding something, a key ring. Started finding the photos every morning. Different poses, different days, always on the porch, always holding the keys, always looking directly at the camera. But no cameras had been set up outside, not mine anyway. Then one night, woke up in bed, felt normal, until a cold draft hit, turned and saw the front door wide open, and someone standing in the doorway, smiling, same face. Same eyes, but not right. They spoke, "Thank you for warming the place," and closed the door from the inside. Woke up outside again. This time the lock was changed. The key didn't fit. Could see through the window, saw me own inside. Sleeping in the bed, wearing my clothes, breathing with my rhythm, smiling in their sleep. Still out here, still watching, still trying to understand, because the truth is, I don't think I ever made it back in. It started when the neighbors complained. They said loud voices were coming from the house after midnight. Sounded like a conversation, they said. "But you live alone, right?" Yes, always lived alone. No TV on, no music, just silent seats. Least that's what was believed. To prove them wrong, a simple step was taken. Set up a camera in the living room. An old webcam placed on the bookshelf, pointed at the couch, hit record, went to sleep, watched the footage the next morning. For the first hornething, just the dark room, the still couch, but at 1:17 a.m. something changed. The lights flickered, then came the movement. Someone walked into frame. The person looked exactly the same clothes, worn to bed, same body, same everything, except there was no memory of getting up. The figure sat on the couch and began to speak, not loudly, not to the camera, to To someone just out of frame, the words were clear. You came back. A pause. Then I did what you asked. Another pause, nods, smiles. Then no, I haven't told anyone. For over 20 minutes the figure talked, responded, laughed once, then suddenly turned to look at the camera and whispered, "You're not supposed to see this." Then the feed glitched. Woke up the next morning in bed, feeling sick, heavy head, dry mouth. And the laptop was closed, the webcam unplugged. There was no memory of doing that. The video file corrupted. Only the first 2 minutes were playable. The rest a gray screen and static. The next night another camera was set up, hidden better to angles. One behind a plant, one tucked in a book, made sure no lights or beeping gave them away. That night it happened again. Same time, 1:17 a.m., the figure entered, sat on the couch, but this time something else moved in the shadows. Not visible, just subtle distortions. Like heat waves or breathing. The figure talked again. You promised it would stop. I did everything, please. Am scared. Around 1:37 a.m., the lights blinked, the figure screamed and backed away. But nothing visible had happened, just fear, real fear. And then the figure spoke againly. This time the voice wasn't their own. It was deeper, slower, echoing. One more, then you rest. Woke up on the couch. Clothes soaked in sweat, hands trembling. The laptop gone. Found it later in the bathtub of water still. Powered off. Tried recording with a phone hidden in the ceiling vent. Next day the vent was sealed shut from the inside, phone crushed. Whatever was being talked to knew it knew about the cameras. It knew when it was being watched. It knew when it was being heard, and it didn't like it. Stopped recording, stopped asking, but the conversations continued. Some nights woke up mid-sentence, sitting on the couch, talking to the dark, saying things never thought to be spoken. She won't be missed, just one more. Let me stay. The doorbell rang one morning. A package sat outside. No sender inside. Was a USB drive. Plugged it into the computer. One file, a video. It showed the living room, but it wasn't a recording from the house. It was from somewhere else in there. Place with identical furniture, layout, lighting, but the person in the video, same face, same clothes, same voice, but different light. In the video the person said, "I made the deal, I took your place." That night stood in the living room with no cameras, no lights, and finally asked out loud, "Who are you?" The answer came not in sound, but in feeling, cold, heavy inside the bones. A single word echoed inside the mind. You now. Every night the same thing happens. The invisible thing returns. The conversation repeats, but each time it takes more memory, emotion, time, and each morning something is different. Hands look older, voice sounds wrong. Reflections don't blink at the same time. If you ever catch yourself on camera talking to nothing, don't try to listen too closely, because what's answering might be you, but not the version that belongs in this world. It was an old house, the kind with creaky floors, thick wooden doors, and locks that didn't work quite right. They moved in during autumn, leaves turning red. Wind always whispering through the cracks, perfect for a fresh start. The family had 5 members. Mom, Dad, 2 kids, and the youngest, Emily. Emily was 6, bright, curious, but always quiet. And she had one strange habit. She sleepwalked. At first it was harmless. She'd wander into the kitchen. Once she sat in the hallway humming to herself at 3 a.m. Everyone laughed it off, but then she started going to the back room, a room that had been locked since they moved in. An old servant's quarters, according to the landlord. Dusty, untouched, no one had entered it, yet Emily would walk straight to that door every night, barefoot, eyes closed, and she'd just stand there for hours, sometimes humming, sometimes whispering. The parents thought it was odd. They tried locking her door, but she'd unlock it somehow. They nailed her window shut, put bells on the doorknob still. Every night, at 2:14 a.m. she'd be there in front of that room not moving. One morning her older brother asked her why she kept doing that. She didn't answer, just looked up and said, "She calls me." The door stayed locked. No key was found. Even the landlord claimed he didn't have one, so they left it alone until the night it opened. It was a stormy night, heavy wind, the power flickered, and everything felt strange. At 2:14 a.m. they heard footsteps, soft, bare Emily again, but this time the door was open. She walked in, and it closed behind her. They ran to the door, tried to open it, pulled and pushed, it wouldn't budge. They shouted her name, no answer, just silence, and then a low, distant laugh from inside. It took an hour for the door to finally creak open. Emily stood there, smiling, eyes wide, pupils huge. She walked past them, silent, back to bed. When asked what happened in the room, she only said, "She talked to me." They tried sealing the door, nailed it shut, placed furniture in front of it, but the next night Emily stood in front of it. Again, furniture untouched, nails still in place, but the door opened from then on. The rule was clear: no one goes in that room. Not even in daylight, because things changed after that. Emily started drawing symbols, circles, with eyes, triangles, with teeth, and crayon on the walls on her skin. She barely spoke anymore, only whispered to herself. They tried taking her to a doctor, psychologist, priest. No one could explain what was happening, but every night she still walked to that room, and every night the door opened for her. Only her one night the mother couldn't take it anymore. She followed Emily, and the door shut behind her. No sound, no scream, just silence. Then a soft knock came from inside, but when they opened it, no one was there, just Emily sitting in the middle of the room, alone, smiling. The mother never came back. Her clothes were found folded neatly beside the bed, no signs of a struggle. Just the smell of something old, something wet from that day forward. Emily was never the same, her voice different, too calm, too old, her eyes too still. She didn't blink often, and when she did it was too slow. Now the family lives with the door always open. They tried moving, but every house they stayed in, the room appeared again, same size, same door, same time, and Emily always found it. They've learned not to follow her anymore. They've learned not to ask questions. And the father keeps a journal, one line written every morning, 2:14 a.m. She walked again, the door welcomed her. The house remembers. If you ever move into a house with a locked room, and someone in your home sleepwalks to it every night, don't try to stop them, and whatever you do, never go inside. It began after moving into the old cottage outside of town. It was peaceful, quiet, and surrounded by forest, perfect for writing, resting, and forgetting. The first morning there nothing seemed strange, but on the second morning there was a thin, red scratch on the left forearm, just one, like a paper cut. Shrugged it off, but the next morning there were 3 all on the same arm. Small, neat, like something with sharp fingers had gently traced across the skin. No memory of pain, no blood, just scratches that weren't there the night before. Changed the bedsheets, cleaned the mattress, even checked the cat for sharp claws known. Matched the lines, still tried to forget, but the pattern continued. Each morning brought more scratches, some shallow, some deep, some in shapes that didn't look natural. One looked like a spiral, another like an eye. Started wearing long sleeves to bed, even gloves. Woke up the next day, scratches under the shirt, under the gloves, on the skin, places the hands couldn't reach. While asleep, installed a camera, simple setup, infrared night vision, pointed at the bed, hit record, went to sleep, woke up feeling strange, shoulders stiff, skin burning. pulled back the sleeves. New scratches this time, one line across the chest, another on the leg. Watched the footage from midnight to 3:06 a.m. Nothing happened, then movement. The body sat up. Still asleep, but the eyes were wide open. Hands slowly dragged across the arms, but not scratching, just hovering. And then behind in the dark corner something moved, not fully visible, but two faint glowing shapes' eyes. The footage ended at 3:33 a.m. After that, the body lay back down smiling. Started waking up tired, more than Terry drained, pale skin, bruises on the back, scratches, now spelling out words. One morning, the word hello was carved across the ribs. Another day, mine called a doctor. They said it might be insomnia. Suggested sleep studies, stress therapy, but nothing explained the writing or why the mirror fogged up one morning with you saw me. Started locking the bedroom door, put salt around the bed. Still the scratches came more violent now, like something angry unseen. Started hearing whispers at night, soft female, always behind the ear. Don't fight me, almost ready. One more night. Tried sleeping in the bathtub, still woke with cuts. Tried staying awake, lasted 2 nights. On the third passed out, woke up in the woods. Barefoot, bleeding with the word closer written across the chest. A friend came to stay, didn't believe they saw it themselves. Slept in the same room, locked the door, kept the lights on. They still woke up with claw marks on their legs. They left before sunrise. Now the scratches form symbols, circles inside triangles, old markings, things found in books. About summoning, possession, witchcraft. Found one symbol in an old diary, hidden under the floorboards. The diary belonged to a woman who used to live there. Her final entry read, "She's under the bed now. She sleeps inside me." Set fire to the mattress. Slept on the floor, still woke up bleeding. Even tried burning sage, nothing worked. The whispers only grew louder. "I'm awake now. You opened it. I wear your skin now." When looking in the mirror, sometimes the reflection doesn't match. It smiles when there's no smile. It blinks late. It shows scratches before they appear. The last few mornings woke up with words on the walls, written in something dark. Not ink, not paint, almost mine. One more night. Let me in if you ever wake up with small scratches. And they keep coming back. Don't ignore them. Don't try to cover them. Because they're not random, they're a message, and eventually the one writing them wants an answer. The house had 3 floors, old creaky stairs, and a wooden roof accessible only by a narrow attic ladder. It wasn't used often, nobody really wanted to go up there. Except someone was. It began quietly first, small noises, during the night creaks above. The bedroom ceiling thumps like footsteps directly overhead. At first it was blamed on animals, maybe squirrels, maybe wind, until the first real scare. Woke up on the roof. It was cold, dew-covered. And the world looked wrong from up there, like it didn't belong, like you didn't belong. No memory of getting there, no dream, no noise, just one moment to sleep. Next moment, barefoot on rough wooden shingles under the stars. The attic hatch was wide open. The ladder extended, came down, shaking, checked the windows. All locked. Bedroom door had been shut. The attic access had been latched the night before. Tried to forget, but it kept happening always at 3:12 a.m. Never earlier, never later, and always woke in a new spot on the roof. Sometimes lying flat, sometimes curled into a ball, unsettling at the edge, legs dangling down 1 inch from falling. Started placing furniture in front of the attic door. Blocked it with chairs, boxers, and even tied it shut with cord. Still woke up on the roof, nothing disturbed. Cord still tied, furniture untouched. The only sign, the attic hatch wide open. A neighbor noticed one morning. Said they saw someone standing on the chimney around 3 a.m. Said it looked like you but taller, and said the figure didn't move, just watched them, and when they blinked, it was gone. Set up a camera, put one facing the attic ladder, another one aimed at the bed, watched the footage the next day. From 311 to 313 the screen went black, then static, then back to normal, but the bed was empty. Checked the attic camera, it showed something climbing the ladder, something pale, no clothes, no face, just shape, a blurry version of a body. It passed the camera, and when the static ended the hatch was open, went to the hospital, they called it sleepwalking. Maybe stress, maybe trauma, but that didn't explain the footage. Didn't explain the scratches on the arms, didn't explain why the attic walls now had writing. Not carved, written in dust letters that changed daily, almost ready. Roof is the door, one more. Climb brought a friend to stay, they stayed up all night. At 312 they said they saw something rise from the bed. Not standing, floating, arched back, head tilted, it turned toward them and whispered, "You're not invited." They left before dawn that day. The roof was checked in daylight, new symbols were there, burnt into the wood circle's eyes, arrows pointing up, and in the center, a handprint too big to be human. Too long in the fingers, sleep became difficult, even locking self into a closet didn't help. Still woke up on the roof one morning, woke at the chimney's edge, both feet hanging off fingertips, bleeding, next to a note, stuck with a nail, into the wood. Next time fall. The attic was sealed shut, with chain screws, metal plates moved the bed to the ground floor. Still woke up their chains, untouched, hatch locked, and yet the roof was still cold. Beneath now there's something new. The thing on the roof doesn't disappear anymore. Some nights it waits at the edge, watching when the eyes close. It speaks not in words and thoughts, you are the path, the door needs blood. Climb, once more, stay forever. Final solution, trying not to sleep. Staying awake with pills, coffee, cold showers, it's working for now, but the body gets tired, the mind forgets. And each night the weight behind the eyes grows heavier. One day soon sleep will come, and when it does, it won't just be another night on the roof. It'll be the last, because the roof doesn't want a visitor, it wants a resident. It started as a strange dream, nothing scary, just different. Woke up in bed like usual, same room, same blanket, but something was off. The walls looked older. The wallpaper was torn, there were no windows. Walked through the hallway, every step echoed. Too loud, the lights flickered in a color that didn't feel natural, like old memories trying to glow. Thought it was just a dream, until it happened again. And again and again, every night I'd wake up in a version of my house that was almost correct. Almost in the dream house, things were in the wrong places. The mirror in the hallway reflected things that weren't in the room. There were extra doors bent. I never opened them, and the clock never moved from 3:17 a.m. No matter how long I walked, it was always 3:17. I started leaving things behind. Dropped a coin on the hallway table. Woke up the next morning, real world, everything normal. But the coin wasn't in my pocket. It wasn't anywhere. The next night in the dream house, there it was, right where I left it. Soon, the two houses began to blur. One morning, I woke up with dusty footprints on my floor, footprints I didn't make. They matched the pattern of the hallway in the dream house. I tried setting alarms, tried locking my door, tied my wrist to the bedpost. Still woke up in that second version, only now it had grown rooms. I didn't recognize stairs that led down forever. A basement that didn't exist in the real house. One night I saw someone else there. They stood at the top of the stairs. Their face looked like mine, but the eyes were all wrong. They didn't blink, just smiled and said, "You're home." I woke up gasping. But this time the real house had changed. A crack in the wall that hadn't been there before. The mirror now showed two reflections. Meaning something behind me. When I turned around, nothing. I tried sleeping at a friend's place, didn't matter. Still woke up in the other house. Now it was welcoming. The lights turned on by themselves. Music played softly, but the songs were in a language I didn't know, and there were footsteps above me, even though I never saw anyone move. I started marking time in the real world. 7 hours asleep. In the dream house felt like days once. I walked so far I reached the woods behind the house, except the trees were black, the sky was red, and something followed me, just out of sight. A tall figure with hands too long, and a voice like wind in a tunnel. I tried not sleeping at all, but the longer I stayed awake, the more the real house began to change. The windows fogged from the inside. My reflection stopped following my movements, and my keys didn't fit the locks anymore. Then one night I didn't wake up. I just stayed in the second version all day, all night. The clocks still said 3:17, but I walked the halls. Endlessly, doors opened by themselves. One door had my name carved on it. When I opened it, I saw my bedroom and the real world, me sleeping. But something else stood beside the bed, watching, breathing, smiling. The next thing I knew, I was back in my body. Sweating, shaking, ran to the mirror, only my reflection, but it winked. I didn't now. Every night, I return not by choice, the other house waits. It changes, grows, breathes. It knows me, and I know this much, am not the only one it calls. If you ever wake up in your own house, but the air feels wrong, if the clocks don't tick, and the windows show a sky you've never seen, don't open the wrong door, because if the second version of your house finds you useful, it might not let you go.